Let's see who we have now. Ashabudeen Sakoor, number 17 on your list. Good afternoon, Mr. Sakoor. Ask you to please stand and raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth? Yes. Please state and spell your name. Ashabudeen Sakoor, Ashabudeen. Last name is Sakoor. Ashabudeen Sakoor, called as a witness by the government, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. Your witness. Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Sakoor. Can you tell the jury how old you are? I am 41 years old. Are you working right now? Yes. What type of work do you do generally? I'm a cell phone repair technician. How long have you been doing that for? 5 years. Have you ever been convicted of a crime? Yes. What type of crime? Assault, criminal sale of controlled substance, and attempted sale of controlled substance. Let me start with conviction. Back in 2007, and that was for criminal sale of controlled substance, is that right? Yes. Can you tell the jury briefly what led up to that? Were you selling drugs at the time? Yes. What types of drugs? Cocaine. And where were you selling drugs? In Queens. How long did you sell drugs for at that time? About 4 or 5 years. And you also have, could we have a beginning and end? 4 or 5 years. Just give us some time when you did this, some time frame. Like from 94 to about 98. Can you just briefly describe how you got involved in selling drugs? In the neighborhood where I used to hang out, I used to go hang out on the street corner, and that's where I picked it up from. What neighborhood is that? Flushing. You also mentioned an attempted criminal sale of controlled substance. Is that from 1998? Yes. Did you serve any jail time for that? Yeah, I think they put it all together as one. You mean both felonies as one? Yes. How much jail time did you serve? 2.5 to 5. Were you selling cocaine again for that conviction? Yes. You also mentioned an assault conviction. Can you briefly describe to the jury what led to that conviction? It was at a club, and some gentleman tried to rob me for my chain and my watch. What did you do? Defending myself, I cut one of them, and I ran a few over with my car. Do you know if they were injured? They got stitches. And you pled guilty to assault in the second degree? Yes. Is that a felony? Yes. Did you serve time for that? Yes. Okay, and how much time? That was part of a 2.5 to 5. So that was 2 felonies for the one time in jail, is that right? Yes. Where did you serve that time? Orleans Correctional Facility. Where is that? Albion, New York. Showing you what's already been entered into evidence as Government Exhibit number 38. Do you recognize that individual? Yes. Who is that? That was Sean. How do you know that person? I was incarcerated with him. At Orleans, is that right? Yes, at Orleans. Did you talk to him during that time? Yes. Would you say you became friendly with him? Yes. While in jail, did you commit any crimes? May have sold a couple of joints of marijuana. You say you might have. You did? Yes. And was Sean involved in that as well? Yes. And during your time in jail, did you talk about your drug business? Yes. Just briefly, can you tell us what you talked about with Sean concerning your drug business? What I used to do to make money in the streets before I got arrested? Which was what? We had a service that delivered crack. And by service, what do you mean? You paged us and we delivered it to your house. Was it pretty successful? Yes. Were you also involved in heroin selling as well? No, not before I went to prison. Okay, when did you get out of prison? December 2nd, 2001. And did there come a time when you saw Sean again? Yes. Can you tell the jury what led up to that? He was coming around asking my sister when I was getting out, and then when I got out, I contacted him, and he came around and we started hanging out. Where were you hanging out? He would come to my house. Where was your house at the time? College Point, Queens. Did there come a time when you and Sean entered a drug transaction? Yes. Can you tell the jury what led to that? He asked me if I could help him get some heroin for a friend of his, and I got him 10 grams of heroin. Were you involved in drug selling at that point? Yes. And this would be in early 2002, is that right? Yes. Did you meet anyone else with Sean? The guy that bought the drugs, but I don't remember his name. And were you paid for that, those 10 grams of heroin? Yeah. Do you remember where you provided that to him? Excuse me? Do you remember where you gave that to Sean? I think it was in College Point by my house. He had been to your house, is that right? Yes. Now, at that time, this is early 2002, were you involved in heroin and cocaine or just selling heroin? A little bit of both. And did you mention that to Sean? Yes. Going to direct your attention to July 11th of 2002. What happened to you that day, Mr. Sakoor? I was kidnapped. Can you tell the jury, first of all, where that occurred? That occurred at a topless bar called Good Vibrations in College Point. What time did you get to the bar that evening? Around 12:30. That would be 12:30 a.m.? 12:30 a.m., yes. Before you got to the club, where were you? Home. Home, College Point? Yes. Do you remember how you got to the club that day? I think a friend of mine's gave me a ride. When you got to that club, did you speak to anyone inside? When I was inside, yeah, I spoke to an individual. Did you know that person? No. Do you remember what you talked about while you were inside? We were just talking, just basically about the girls on stage and I think shoes, and that's about it. Did there come a point when you left the club? Yes. Can you tell the jury what happened? I borrowed a bouncer's phone and went outside to call a cab and go home, and 2 gentlemen approached me on both sides with guns out, and they put it to my back and told me to go across the street. This is standing outside the club, is that right? Yes. You said 2 gentlemen. Had you seen those 2 individuals before? No. Did they each have a gun? Yes. Did you see the guns? Yes. Can you describe either of them? Just both of them were black. Were they large guns or smaller? They was like handguns about this big. What did you do when they approached? I walked across the street. What did you do? We walked across the street and then the van door opened and there was another gentleman with a machine gun in the back seat and they pushed me in the van. I tried to fight them off and I couldn't, and they grabbed me and duct taped my hands and feet and threw me in the van. Now, you said there were 2 individuals who first approached you, right? Yes. And there was another person with the gun? It was a driver, and then I think there was one in the back. So how many people in total were in that van? 4, and then a guy from inside came out later. The guy from inside? That I was speaking to, yes. He also entered the van? Yes. And you said there was a guy holding a machine gun, is that right? Yes. Could you describe that gun? It was like this big black with wood on it, wood grip. About 2 feet? Yeah, it was like an AK-47. And for the record, you had about 2 feet up. Was that the length of it, you said? Yeah, about this big. Once you were in the van, you said you started fighting a little bit? Before I got into the van, yes. Then what happened? They all wrestled me into the van. What happened inside the van? They duct taped me and put me on the floor. When they duct taped you, what did they duct tape? Excuse me? What part of your body did they duct tape? My hands and my feet, and then they later duct taped my eyes up? Were your hands in front of you or behind you? I think they were in front of me. Now, once you were in the van and you were duct taped, is that when they put the duct tape on your eyes, you said? Yeah, they put me in supine and then was asking me questions, and then they duct taped my eyes. What types of questions were they asking you? That they wanted $250,000 and I had to take them to where the money was at. Did you notice any other vehicles in the area at the time? Not at the time, but later, yes. Where is that? We stopped somewhere and another car pulled up and somebody jumped into the van. And the person that jumped in the van was on the phone talking to someone. And they were saying, listen, we know you got the money. We know you got the money. And then they decided to take me to my sister's house. When he got out the van, went back into the other car and drove me to my sister's house. Then I informed them my sister worked for the police. And that's when they got angry, put me back in the van, took me to Brooklyn. I don't know it was Brooklyn until later, though. Let me stop you there. You said another person entered the van and was on the phone. Is that right? Yes. Did you hear what, if anything, that person was saying on the phone? He was talking to somebody on the phone saying, listen, we got him, and he's saying he doesn't have the money, and I guess the other person was telling him that he has the money, he has the money. And at that point, you were still in the van, right? Yes. Now, from the club, you said you went to your sister's neighborhood? Yes. Where is that? Flushing, Queens. Was that nearby? Yeah, about 10-15 minutes. What kind of neighborhood is Flushing? It's a nice neighborhood. Why did you end up at your sister's place? Because they thought the money was there. Did you direct them to your sister's place? I think they knew where it was, and I might have told them it was in Flushing. Did you tell them then that your sister works for the police department? Yes. What happened then? They got angry and threw me back in the van. Then what happened? We drove for a while and then we stopped. We stopped somewhere. It was by a highway because I know I heard the cars and they let me use the bathroom. And then we proceeded somewhere and then they took me out and carried me into a building. Did you know where you were at that point? No, not yet. How many people were with you at that point? I don't know. Where did you go once you got... I was blindfolded still. Where did you go once you got to that building? We went upstairs, some stairs, and then into an apartment, and they threw me in a room on a bed. At that point, how many people were there? I'm not sure. I just heard maybe like 3-4 people talking. Then what happened? About what time do you think this was? I don't know, like 2-3 hours after they got me in front of the club. You said they threw you on a bed? Yes. And were you still tied up at that point? Yes, I was duct taped. What happened next? It got quiet, and then as the night As the night went on, the duct tape stopped sticking on my hands, and when I got one of my hands free, I lifted up the one that was over my eyes, and I seen the guy sitting in the doorway with the gun on his lap. So I seen the scissors on the floor, and I picked up the scissors and cut myself free, and I tried to leave the apartment. When I tried to leave the apartment, he had a fan blowing on him, and I bumped into a wire, and he jumped up and pulled the gun up on me. And when he pulled the gun up on me, I put it under my armpit, and me and him wrestled for the gun for about half an hour to an hour through this apartment. When I dragged him to the door, I got the door open, and I seen a neighbor and told the neighbor if they could call the cops for me. What happened then? His associate came, and they wrestled me back down and hog-tied me in the bedroom. And then, like 10 minutes later, the cops kicked the door in and rescued me. So, Mr. Sakoor, I just want to clarify here. Government Exhibit 38, Sean, did you see him at all the night you were kidnapped? No. Showing you Government Exhibit 33, do you recognize this person? This has been entered into evidence? He looks familiar, but not off the top of my head right now. I'm going to show you what's also been entered into evidence as Government Exhibit 900G. Do you recognize that photo? Yeah, that's the apartment. Is that the bed that you said that they threw you on? Yes. So to back up, you said at some point the duct tape wasn't sticking anymore? Yeah, it was hot in this apartment. Do you remember when? July 11th. At that point, when you were able to see who was left in the apartment, was there more than one person? I couldn't see behind him. I could just see him in the doorway. And you said there was a gun on his lap, is that right? Yes. I'm going to show you what's been entered as Government Exhibit 903A, which has not yet been entered as of yet. I'm going to show you Government Exhibit 903A. Do you recognize this photo? Yeah, that's the machine gun. The government moves to admit 903A into evidence at this time. All right, no objection? In evidence. Now that the jury can see it, can you tell us what that is? That's the gun that the guy had in the back seat, and he also had it in his lap when I got free. You say you started wrestling him, is that right? Yes. At that point, was it him by himself or someone else was able to? No, first it was just me and him, and I took him in every direction in the apartment until I found the door. Then what happened? I opened the door and one of the neighbors was coming up. He already said that. What else you want to ask? Tell us what happened after the police officers arrived. They cut me free and they took me to the precinct. And did you tell the police at that time what had happened? Yes. Did you tell the police that you were involved in selling drugs at that time? No. Did you learn where you were being held that day on July 11th, 2002? Yeah, when they came out, yeah. Where were you? In Brooklyn. And as a part of talking with the police, did you view photo arrays? Yes. I'm going to show you what hasn't been entered yet. This will be Government Exhibit 904. Do you view more than one photo array, Mr. Sakoor? Yes. I'm going to show you this. Do you see that on your screen? Yes. Do you recognize this? Not really. Do you recognize your signature there? Yes, I recognize my signature. Is this one of the photo arrays that you were shown on July 21st of 2002? Yes. Did you pick out anybody at these arrays at all? Did you identify anybody? Yes. So who did you identify? Go ahead. Your Honor, the government moves to admit Government Exhibit 904. 904 in evidence. And now that the jury can see, can you tell us who you identified in this photo array? Which number? Number 6. That's this gentleman, is that right? Yes. Is that right, Mr. Sakoor? Yes. Can you identify him as one of the people whom you saw that night? In the van, yes. In the van, one of the people in the van? Yes. And you mentioned that there was the van and another car. Did you see any females? There was a female voice in the other car, yeah. I never got to see her. Did you see Sean after this incident at all? One time at parole. I have nothing further. Thank you.